I can show you the world. Hey pals, Alicia here, welcome to my channel, and if you're new here, this is the place where we talk about books. Today I thought it would be really fun to do the new kind of summer book tag. I saw this tag on Mindy's channel, I will link her channel below, and I thought it was super fun. I think this tag was originally created by Book Break, so I will link that original video below as well. And this tag was created for the summer that we're in now. A new kind of summer. A summer where we didn't perhaps go on the trips that we wanted to go on. We didn't do what we would normally do in the summer, but making our own new summer for us now. And I recognized that summer is nearing the end, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't jump on a trend super late. So there are 6 prompts for this tag, and each one is designed to take you to a different place. Take you to a different place in the world. You're creating your own travel, your own vacation through books. So for all of the books that I picked for this tag, I tried to pick ones where place or like environment played a pretty significant role in the book, because all of the tag challenges are about picking a country that's this, picking a place that does this, and instead of just picking a book that happened to be set in that place but it could have been set anywhere, I tried to pick ones where place was important. And I don't know if that makes any sense right now, but I'm hoping that it does as I go through the questions. So without further ado, let's get into those prompts. The first prompt is to recommend a book from the country you're in now and trying to find one as close to the place that you physically are. I live in Victoria, BC, which is on the southernmost tip of Vancouver Island in Canada. And the book that I am here to recommend is also set in Victoria, BC. I have a book that is set in the place that I am. To All Appearances a Lady by Marilyn Bowering. This is a historical fiction story that was published in 1989, and this is a dual timeline history story that is at once at the turn of the 20th century and then is also set in 1957. And in the 1957 timeline, we are following a man named Robert Louis Lamb, and he is getting on his boat called the Rose, and he is going on a little adventure to circumnavigate Vancouver Island. So you get to do a full little adventure tourism tour all around the island. You get to see all of the little islands, you get to see, oh my god. You get to see the environment, you get to see that like moody Vancouver Island atmosphere that you kind of can see on the cover here. So in the one timeline you're following Robert, and Robert, he went on this boat by himself as like a solo mission, but he is all of a sudden being haunted by a ghost. So this ghost is joining Robert, and she is telling him the story of her history and her coming of age. So it goes into Victoria's history specifically through the lens of the Chinese opium trade, like the underground opium trade rings that were happening in Victoria. Victoria still is like full of like underground pathways and secret networks from when the opium drug running was a really big industry here. It talks a lot about racism. It talks a lot about leprosy. There was just off the coast of Victoria, there was an island that Victoria residents would send lepers to just live and hang out there, and that was something that I didn't even really know about Victoria, so that was really interesting to learn about that happened. So this is at once like a history lesson of Victoria, but it's also a very action-packed, like thrillery historical fiction. You've got your romance, you've got your love, you've got your loss, and then also a nice little visual tour of of Vancouver Island. The second prompt is to recommend a book set in a different area in the country that you're in. So that could be a different area, a different province, just somewhere else in the country that is not where you are. So I have a book that is set across multiple places in Canada. The book that I would love to recommend for this is This Place, 150 Years Retold. And this is a graphic novel told from a bunch of different authors and illustrators and artists. They are all own voices from an Indigenous perspective. And this graphic novel is meant to illustrate stories of like Canada's history, but specifically through the Indigenous perspective, because a lot of these stories are stories that I probably heard when I was in school, but they were all told through a colonial, like white settler lens. So it's obviously skewed towards that perspective. And this graphic novel is picking up on different key points in Canadian history, kind of referenced as the post-apocalyptic world that Indigenous people are living in now since contact, which is absolutely something that's true, but I'd never really thought about before, that Indigenous people are currently living in a post-apocalyptic world because of colonialism and white settler violence. And that really sinks in this graphic novel. So it's set all over the country, all different moments and experiences that have been totally warped by the colonial narrative, told from an actual like own voices point of view of what actually happened and how violent these stories actually are. The art was beautiful, the writing was beautiful. This is an absolutely stunning graphic novel and is required reading for any Canadian that grew up in the Canadian school system, because you will be familiar with a lot of these stories, but not the perspective that is shown here, and it is so important to see. This book also has a foreword by Alicia Elliott in this, and I absolutely love Alicia Elliott's writing, so that was also a little gem in here as well. So definitely recommend this if you want to learn about the history of Canada in a graphic novel format. Also for this prompt, I just have one other book that I would like to add on here as well, because this one is set in one place. So if you want to get rooted in one place, I recommend Jonny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. This is about a two-spirit Indigenous queer teen living in Manitoba. So this is set near Winnipeg, and this is a coming of age, almost memoir-like story about this fictional Jonny Appleseed's life. You're kind of getting slices of life that all kind of shape who Jonny Appleseed is. This is an absolutely beautiful story. This is a 5-star read. This so far, as of August, is the best book that I have read so far this year in 2020. So I just wanted to get this one on here as well. As many shout outs for this book as I can. Prompt number 3 is to recommend a book that reminds you of summers when you were young. So I have 2 books here because I couldn't really pick between them, and they both kind of offer different things that would that shaped the summers when I was young. So the first one that I would love to recommend is The Troop by Nick Cutter. And I know what you're thinking. This book is an absolute horror. Why are you recommending this one, Alicia? And it's because the experience in this book, not the horror bits, not the horror parts, but the experience of these Boy Scouts going on a camping trip on a remote little island is exactly my childhood. When I was growing up, I was in the like Girl Guides, Girl Scout program. Like I went all the way from brownies to Girl Guides to Pathfinders. That's when you're like an adult teen, like a young adult going on like cooler, like build your own camping trips. So I did all of that. I loved it. We went camping like every single weekend. We even went on some like remote island camping trips, which is what happens in The Troop. So the perspective of that was exactly my childhood. So I identified so much with this book up to a point. So the troop, I realize I haven't explained, is about a troop of Boy Scouts, and they go on this camping trip and everything's good, everything's fine, everything's like boys being boys, kids being kids, and then something absolutely heinous happens. A visitor comes to this camp, which just changes everything. It changes their lives, it changes the world, like it just gets nasty from there. I absolutely love this. I was even camping when I read it, so I got even more out of it again. So I absolutely love the troop. I relate and identify so much with this story, and it really reminds me of summers when I was a kid. Another one that reminds me of summers when I was a kid is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And again, this is another horror, but it's not so much, it's not the horror parts that I identify with. It's the friendships and just the being a tween teen girl that is, like, weirdly enough, Grady Hendrix, a man, captured the essence of like a child, like a girl child and like a teenage girl so perfectly in this, like how the friendship blossomed, how how these girls like maintain their friendships with one another, how they're like, they love each other, but they're also kind of assholes to each other. And this just had a very nostalgic vibe for being a teen in the 90s. This is set in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s, so it was like similar, but not the same. And I absolutely love this. Even though this book is a horror, I bawled my eyes out at the end. And I was just so transported and moved by this. This is about a girl that gets possessed by a demon, and then her best friend trying to save her. And it's gross, but also amazing and so full of love and so full of heart. Highly recommend. I've never been possessed. The fourth prompt is to recommend a book from a country that you have visited before. And I was doing a bit of an audit through my shelves looking for like a book that I felt like perfectly captured this prompt, and there were a couple, but the one that I feel like the sense of place is just the most fleshed out and the most important to the story is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I think in 2016 or 2017, I went to New York with my mom, and I had not read this book yet. And this book was set in New York. And I was in like a taco place, like a Mexican cantina with my mom. And we sat there for like an hour and a half, and my mom narrated and just like told me the entire story of The Goldfinch when we were there, because I think she had just read it at the time and it really resonated with her, having read The Goldfinch and then being in New York, seeing all of these sites that are captured in the book. So she told me in every single detail the entire plot of this book, but then I still went home and read it anyways because she really sucked me into that story, and she really like had a lot of feelings and a lot of passion about it. So I read this just as soon as I came home from New York, and I loved this. This is an incredible, incredible coming of age story. So if you are familiar with The Goldfinch is about a young boy named Theo Decker. We start when Theo is a tween and he goes into the Metropolitan Museum of Art with his mother one day, and there is a terrorist attack that happens in this museum, and it unfortunately kills his mother along with a whole bunch of other people. So Theo's life kind of takes this abrupt turn. He is now motherless, living in New York, and then it follows Theo for the next like 20 years and everything that he gets up to and everywhere that his life goes. Theo is one of the most successfully developed characters I have ever read, I think, in my opinion. You love him, you hate him, you cringe at him, you want to slap him, you want to punch him, you want to tuck him in at night. You just care so much about Theo, and the sense of place in this is so richly developed. Like, you feel like you are like walking with Theo down the streets of New York. You feel like you're going into these places. Absolutely loved it. And if you feel like just going on a trip to New York right now in this time safely, check out The Goldfinch. I think you also go to Las Vegas in here as well for a bit. And I have been there too. So double win. Double win. The fifth prompt is to read a book that is set in the country that you'd like to visit next. And so for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've known that it existed, I have always wanted to go to Iceland. There's something about the gloomy, volcanic, just like ominous environment, kind of deserted landscape that has just really, really called to me. And I read Burial Rites last year by Hannah Kent, and this is set in Iceland. And when I think of the word atmospheric, I always go back to this book. This is one of the most beautiful, like ominous, like aesthetic books I have ever read, and it's all set in kind of like deserted, gloomy, it's not really gloomy, but it's set in like deserted, isolated Iceland. And this is a historical fiction story set in the early 19th century, and it is about the last public execution, the last public beheading that happened in Iceland. And it happened to be a woman that was accused of murder. So her name is Agnes Magnusdóttir, and when she was accused of murder, they sent her from her home to this very remote, isolated cabin in Iceland, and where she was basically living with a family until her execution date. And so this story it's very isolated. It's just following Agnes, the family that she's staying with, who's kind of like, oh, there's a murderer amidst us. And then a priest who's kind of coming to read her last rites, like get to know her, try and understand why someone would commit this act of violence. So it's a very quiet, character-driven story. You're really getting to know these very few characters that are that you're focusing on, but just like the sense of environment and the moody landscape added so much to the moody plot. It's just so quiet, and yeah, I felt like I was in some like cool witchy music video the whole time I was reading this. It really transported me somewhere that I wanted to go. And even though this book is very grim, very bleak, very devastating, it didn't make me want to go to Iceland any less. It made me want to go to Iceland even more. It made me want to go extra. So I extra want to go to Iceland now after reading Burial Rites, and I 100% recommend this book. I absolutely loved it. I feel like even if you aren't into historical fiction, this book is incredible. It's a very powerful story, and I recommend it. And the final prompt is to recommend a book in the furthest away place that you can imagine. The furthest away place that you can picture. So I didn't do anything scientific here. Like, I didn't go to a Google thing and be like, where's the farthest away place from me? I could have done that, but I did not. And I have just picked The White Road by Sarah Lotz. This book is set in two places. It's set in Wales, that's far away from me, and it's also set on Everest, which is Nepal and Tibet, and that also is very far away from me. So this book is incredible. I would say this is a horror thriller, like an action adventure thriller that is all about the isolation and the environment of the polar extremes of the top of a mountain, top of Everest, and then caving underground in like the deep underground. So in The White Road, you are following a guy named Simon. Simon is a blogger. He has a blog online that is all about like sharing like the grim, dark realities of the world. So he's definitely that guy that like reposts like photos of people dying on like forums and stuff. He really like capitalizes on human tragedy. And he hears about this cave in Wales that is off limits because like the water system in this cave is really volatile and unpredictable, and people get stuck and drown. And he knows that there's dead bodies trapped down in this cave. So he's like, I'm gonna go caving and I'm gonna go capture video of these dead bodies so that we can put it on the site. So he cares absolutely not at all for the fact that these were real people with real families, and just wants those, he just wants those likes. He just wants those clicks, likes, and subscribes, guys. So he goes down to this cave. It is horrifying. It is horrible to read. It is the most claustrophobic I have ever felt. I didn't know that I was scared of caving. I didn't know that I was scared of small spaces until I read this. She really brought caving to life in a horrible way in this. And so Simon goes caving, and then when he comes out of it, he's like, hell, why don't I just go climb Everest too? There's dead bodies up there. There's dead bodies on Everest, right? So he just like decides he's gonna go climb Everest. And the thing that I learned about Everest is as long as you've got like $50,000, you can just go. You don't have to train. I mean, you probably should, but you don't have to. If you got the money, you can just go. So he goes to Everest with the intent of taking footage of dead bodies. So Simon, piece of shit, going on this trip. When you're reading this, you get to explore Everest, which is cool. You get to explore these caves in Wales, which is cool. It's just unfortunate that you happen to be doing it with a total piece of shit Simon. But Simon aside, you're going on a trip. You're going traveling. You're going around. You're going around the world. So that satisfies this prompt in my humble opinion. So I hope you enjoyed traveling around the world with me. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought. Let me know if you want to read any of these books. I would love for you guys to do this prompt and take me on a trip. I want to go on a trip of your choosing. So thanks for being here, guys. You guys are the best. And until next time, see you, pals!